our speakers for today. We are going to host our dear, valuable trainers for today. And I would like to also express my gratitude and our appreciation on behalf of Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum in this important and challenging time. With really short communication, they approved to be on board and also support such kind of active volunteers within the ICYF capacity to make sure that we are going to provide them different perspective for today. Thank you so much, Mariam, and thank you so much, Omar, for today's session. Let me introduce Mariam and Omar. Mariam Al-Khatib joined Lunchgood as a spring 2018 fellow to help and support the team during the busy Ramadan season, where she managed and coached over 1,000 campaigns. After her fellowship, she joined full-time as a business development specialist, working to find new partners and opportunities for Lunchgood. Since then, she has transitioned into her new role as a product manager, where she leads her team in putting on Lunchgood's annual giving challenges like Ramadan and Dhul Hijjah Challenge. I'm sure that she's going to explain what are those. And she's also holding bachelor degree in medical engineering from Minnesota University, and she is devoted volunteer like you. And our next speaker for today, Omar Hamid, is a designer who uses entrepreneurship for social good. His focus is reviving a legacy of innovation and contribution in the global Muslim community to build an inspired future. Growing up in Atlanta, Georgia, and United States, Omar founded a successful branding and web design agency in high school. Not long after, he helped launch 2 community-based startups, including the world's largest faith-based crowdfunding platform, launchgood.com. During this time, Omar won an award through the Stars of Science Innovation Program for the design of the world's first chair specifically designed for the mosque, mysanda.com. Not want to take the conventional route, Omar decided to put his university studies aside to work for his growing business full-time. An innovator with an infectious spirit, Omar is always thinking of creative solutions to have a positive impact on the Muslim community and beyond. I'm really excited to be the moderator of today's session, since we are going to talk about practical information. Until now, with our online training program, we had different perspectives with international organizations, how to react any kind of pandemic or natural disaster as a volunteer. However, today, the session is going to take us from talking to walking, and we will see how online crowdfunding is working. They have been implementing more than 1,500 campaigns over 142 countries. And also you will have a chance to practice online crowdfunding within Lunchgood experience. So I don't want to take their valuable time because there are a lot to talk, there are a lot to discuss during today's session. So floor is yours, Omar, to begin with. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We're both, Mariam and I, really excited to be here and to be able to share this time with all of you. And this is maybe one of the larger Zoom calls I've been part of, so this is quite exciting. And thank you for the introductions. But yeah, definitely, you know, like it's a unprecedented time. Like right now, you know, lockdowns all over the world. No one living has experienced something like this, you know, where it's like a global pandemic. And definitely there's the online world is much more essential and vibrant, you know, through this time. So what we'll do is we'll introduce you guys, you all, to Launchgood, to the concept of crowdfunding online. I think a lot of you are probably already familiar with crowdfunding. You know, if not, the high level idea is you have a project, you're trying to raise funds for it, and you create a page online. Many people around the world can just contribute small amounts of money, but then you're able to reach a larger goal. Instead of going to, like, you know, 1 or 2 really wealthy people trying to fund your project, you open it to the masses, to the public, and collect smaller contributions, but the amount can be bigger than what one person could have contributed on their own. So I'll share my screen. We'll give you guys just a quick overview. Let's see here. You guys should be seeing my screen now.
Yes, we can.
Great. Cool. So crowdfunding 101. So what we'll do is I'll just go through in the beginning and give you an overview of LaunchGood and how we fit in this. And then Mariam is going to come in as a crowdfunding expert, mashallah, and she's just going to give you guys very practical steps on crowdfunding. So just thank you for the introductions. Yeah, we've got Mariam Khatib on the left, product manager, and myself, one of the co-founders and CDO, Chief Design Officer. So I help run the design and branding. So just as a high level objective of this talk, by the end of this workshop, inshallah, what you'll be able to get out of this is these following points. Understand what crowdfunding is and how to use it. Know how to plan and run a successful crowdfunding campaign. Learn how to tell your story and why it matters. Identify your crowd and how to tap into it to get funds and support. And use the power of social media to raise funds and awareness about your initiative. Get familiar with LaunchGood's tools and additional resources for your project. And start your own campaign page and begin crowdfunding your initiatives. So inshallah, over the next hour, we'll be able to go through this journey together. So we'll start out with an overview, what you need to start your crowdfunding campaign, crowdfunding storytelling, telling your story, and crowdfunding strategy and network. So as an overview, I'll go over the overview section and inshallah, I'll hand it off to Mariam. We have a video here that we can just play real quick. Just stop me if you guys can't hear it.
Have you ever wondered about the past? The golden age of Islam, we call it, looking upon it with besotted eyes. Have you felt it? That remembering of a legacy. When we built great institutions of knowledge, achieved remarkable breakthroughs, not for the pursuit of this world alone, but for a purpose much grander than all of us. Have you ever wondered about the present? The sands that slip through our fingers and what we build with it. Today, here, now, our hearts are connected like never before. We are the storytellers. We're worshipers, we're seekers, lovers, creatives, and travelers in this life. Sometimes the journey is life-changing, and sometimes we change the world. Have you ever stopped and wondered about the future?
And if you haven't caught on already, LaunchGood is specifically focused on the Muslim community, and you'll see these in the upcoming slides as well. So you'll see there are many crowdfunding platforms out there. There's GoFundMe, you have Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Facebook. However, LaunchGood, we specifically focus on the Muslim community because for us, it's much larger than raising funds. It's actually about changing a narrative. So being focused in that niche of the Muslim community for us allows us to be able to stand out and to really resonate strongly with our community. And as we continue growing, we're always faced with the opportunity, should we become more broad, where everybody, it's just like a GoFundMe.com, it's just very broad and open for everyone, or should we double down on that Muslim identity? And we've seen time and time again that there's a lot of value in being confident in that Muslim identity, and just keeping that strong in our brand. So we pose this question, could a Muslim write the next Harry Potter novel, or the next Lord of the Rings trilogy, or discover the next great vaccine, which would actually be quite helpful right now? We firmly believe so, and that's why we're here. If you look at the most popular businesses, movies, books, etc., how many come from Muslims? Sadly, few. And Launch Good was started as a community and an ecosystem to revive that spirit of creativity, entrepreneurship, and elevate Muslims globally for centuries. Launch Good is a global crowdfunding platform to support Muslims launching good all across the world by helping them raise funds for their campaigns. And one thing I think is important to note is that we don't see ourselves as a bubble. So we're not a by Muslims for Muslims, type of platform. We think of ourselves more as like by Muslims for everyone, And I think, some people, they see the perspective of like, it's very, for example, Islamic to make a product for Muslims. But for us, it's more Islamic to make a product that benefits everyone. And for us, if we're able to resonate with the Muslim community and allow the positive momentum within the Muslim community to amplify, then that's going to be better for everyone, even beyond the Muslim community. So if we just take like a quick scan through time, Muslims for the longest time have been builders of civilizations, and we see all this beautiful architecture, and these things don't just come by themselves. These are symbols of the incredible civilization that was around there to create these places, and they hold a test of time. People, they can enter these spaces today, and the power of that civilization still resonates with the soul today. And one thing, when we're coming with Launch Good is just like, this is how the world looks today. It's a totally new world. And the question is, where is that momentum that was in the global Muslim community, that we have built civilizations and advanced society, way beyond. So where is that energy today? And we pose the question, what does the intersection of this look like? This incredible momentum we have as a community, and civilization building and innovation and medicine and all of this, and the state of the world today, where these logos on the screen, just like 20 years ago, most didn't even exist. Even like 5-10 years ago, they didn't exist. And some of them, and a lot of us, we can't even imagine a world without it today. So where is that energy? And that's kind of where Launch Good's trying to play in that space. Like, we believe in this momentum is still alive today. So we're trying to create a space to allow that interface to flourish. And this is actually one of the things that we've seen. I'm just kind of giving you guys a big picture before we dive into the details. This is what we see. There's actually a term called the edge effect, and this is found in nature. So like they say, between two types of ecosystems in nature, like for example, a mountain and a valley, that intersection of those two ecosystems actually generates the most new life forms. And this is called the edge effect. So going back one slide, seeing this, I feel like there's like a really big opportunity in the merging of these two ecosystems that is very undertapped today. And Launch Good, I think we're just barely scratching the surface, and there's so much potential that's in this space, if we allow it to be. So this is actually a Twitter heat map a few years back, when there was a murder actually in America. And this was a murder of 3 young students in Chapel Hill, where they were in the parking lot. And I think a lot of you might know this. And this is actually right before Launch Good was has taken off. So seeing this, I think it just makes you realize that as soon as this happened, all across the world, it's even like in regions where typing in Chapel Hill shooting doesn't, like, it's not easy to even type in, but the whole world is connected. And I think seeing a map like this, it gives me goosebumps. You can tell that the global ummah is still connected. and it's connected today like never before, you know? And sometimes you feel like you're sitting in the middle of this global heartbeat. And I think a lot of us, this resonates with us. Now, the question is, what's next? Like this, for example, was a Twitter heat map. So a lot of people are talking, right? So there's a lot of talk, but then what's next? Like, how can you take that into an action? Imagine if you just took a sliver of this and, put it towards a project or towards action, then that's that's really big momentum. So we have this term actually that covers this type of community, which we call gummies. So gummies is the global urban Muslims that are educated in English speaking. So everyone on this this call is a gummy. Now, when we say gummies, we don't actually mean this type of gummies, even though Turkey has some really good halal gummies. But this is the community. So this map here is in the more recent New Zealand mosque shooting in Christchurch. And subhanAllah, you can see even in the darkest moments of humanity, there's, the way that humanity responds is so beautiful sometimes. And subhanAllah, it's like, so this is just where the donations were coming in from across the world to go to Christchurch. And you can see, like this is an even more interconnected community now. Like people are more savvy using their devices. And this is even people beyond the Muslim community that resonate. This is like, okay, we won't, they're standing with justice essentially. So subhanAllah, you can see where the donations are coming in all over the world. And you see this and like, there's a global heartbeat, subhanAllah. This was actually our first $1 million campaign. And this is actually one of the I would say magic pieces of LaunchGood, is because sometimes it feels like we're just on the cutting edge of what's happening within the Muslim community around the world. So if we start to see similar campaigns that are trying to address the same thing in multiple places of the world, before they even go live, sometimes we connect those campaign creators together and we say, hey, someone else here is trying to do something similar. And when that alignment happens, rather than the division that sometimes is really common to see within the Muslim community, you see this incredible like force of unity. So rather than this organization doing their initiative and this one doing separate, suddenly you see this amplification, everyone, and unification, like coming on under one campaign. So this is an example for like where the Christchurch mosque shooting in New Zealand, many different organizations united under one campaign, and it gives us strength as a Muslim community, because we're coming at something in a more united effort versus distributing our energies around the world. So this is just like seeing this, just always reminds us like, subhanAllah, there's so much interconnectedness in our community, and it's not actually that common in other communities. Sometimes we might be sitting in the middle of, this global Muslim experience, and we just feel like it's so normal because, for example, currently right now I'm in Sydney, Australia, and Mariam, for example, is in Minnesota in the US. But we can, like, literally you can go to, Istanbul, you can go to South Africa, you can go to Malaysia, you can go to Egypt, you can go to Brazil. Like, it doesn't matter. If you see another gummy, global urban Muslim educated English speaking, you can have an instant connection with them. Like, it feels like you might have known each other for a long time. You share a similar global culture, even though you're living in different hemispheres. So that interconnectedness, I mean, there are massive marketing and branding agencies out there that are trying to figure out how do you tap into that global Muslim market, and the types of insights that they're trying to get they'd spend millions on. And people like all of you on this call, for you, it comes so intuitively, so naturally that sometimes we forget that it's actually valuable. We just think like, oh, this is just how life is. So, so yeah, just keeping that in mind, you know, what comes intuitively for you might not be so intuitive for everyone else. So yeah, so if the gummies market was its own market, its own country, there's over you know, 284 million gummies around the world. So this is specifically urban Muslims that are educated English speaking. So we all know the bigger number, right? Almost 2 billion Muslims around the world. This would be the fourth largest country, just specifically the ones that are connected online, urbanized. So that's still a very strong number. If anybody ever says, you know, oh, like maybe the Muslim market is not a valuable market to address, you know, no one will ever say, oh, the US it's not that valuable of a market, you know, and the gummies market's actually pretty comparable. So, but the gummies market is also undertapped, so that provides a really big opportunity. So I'm speaking a little bit from a entrepreneurship perspective. Like, you know, if you have an entrepreneur like mindset, you're thinking of a business start, or even when it comes to charity. I mean, we've noticed we started LaunchGood with the intention to be a creative and entrepreneurship platform. But then very quickly we had to introduce charity because the market was just saying, we love charity, like Muslims love charity, one of the most generous communities in the world. So definitely for causes that are close to people's hearts, there's a very strong market out there, you know, and getting your message communicated, which Mariam will go over, is, you know, there's a strategy to it. And it's not enough to build a Muslim version of something. You truly have to build a better product. So this is one of our internal kind of like mottos is, you know, it's not just, you know, people say like, oh, we want to build a Muslim Facebook. You know, we say Muslims already have a Facebook and that's called Facebook, you know, like you don't have to create a Muslim version of everything. But if you are going to build something, you should truly be building something that's a better version of the product and not just, you know, slapping a Muslim label on it. So, and building an inspired future is actually what's our tagline. You know, there's like this whole push and tug of war happening in our minds sometimes. Like a lot of Muslims around the world, you know, rightfully so, alhamdulillah, we're proud of our heritage and where we're coming from. And when we look back in our history, a lot of people, they look back and they're inspired, which is good. But then there's an energy where it's like, you want to go back. And that nostalgia kind of wants us to go back in time. So it's like, no, let's be proud of our history, but take that energy into building an inspired future. This slide here is just a reminder that even though the gummies market is so underserved, there's still a huge market out there. So this is a good example of if you produce a quality product that you know, that shares values with the Muslim market, it can go insanely viral. The problem is there's not enough people out there producing quality work intended for the Muslim market. So that, you know, this is just, and it's crazy how famous this series got, and it's in Turkish and everything is just like being translated and stuff. So this is just an example, like the potential in this market is beyond what we can actually even imagine. And again, we're not just helping people raise funds, we're changing the narrative of who Muslims are. And one of the things we found, and I'll try to wrap up my section here soon, but like, is that we started out thinking, you know, it's important to change the narrative of who Muslims are because there's so much misinformation out there in the world. And we thought, you know, we were so excited when we saw Fox News and other like news channels sharing positive news stories about Muslims. We're like, hey, like something's happening here, you know, like the people that are generally against Muslims, like they've seen the positive sides of Muslims through Launch Good campaigns. And we try not to speak as Launch Good, we try to speak through our campaigns. Because mashallah, there's so many incredible campaigns happening around the world that we just try to amplify. But then the longer we've been in it, the more we've been realizing it's even more powerful to change the narrative of who Muslims are to Muslims themselves. If we change our own mindset and our own narrative of, of who we are as a community, that's so much more powerful than trying to change the narrative even external, which is important as well. But I'll just leave that there. I think we should be a lot more confident. I'll give you one small example. Like so many people have tried to build their own, like for example, sports hijabs, and like none of those really like took off that strongly. And suddenly Nike does it, and now everybody wants to, to purchase a Nike one. It's like we should have been confident in our own abilities beforehand, before like somebody coming out from, outside of the Muslim community giving us that validation. It's like, no, we have those skills internally. So yeah, just reinstilling that confidence within our own community. And alhamdulillah, we have an all-star team. And as you'll see, as I hand it over to Maryam, our team is global. So that's one of the things too. It's like, it's 8 a.m. for Maryam, and it's like midnight for me. And like, we're global, just like this call. Like, mashallah, I saw the list of where you guys are coming from, super global. So, and our team is completely global as well. So like, there's no two people in an office almost. Like, we're all just working from, co-working spaces, or now mostly it's just our homes. But we've been doing this before the lockdowns. This is the nature of our business. But alhamdulillah, this makeup of our team does really help, because that's the gummies market. Like this is the gummies market. It's just super, distributed and super skilled. And there's just some stats here: over 142 million raised, over 30 million raised just this Ramadan, because of the product that Maryam helped lead, and she'll probably touch on that. We have almost 1 million people using us, and over 16,000 campaigns. Alhamdulillah, we're operating in almost every country in the world. So without further ado, I'll be handing it over. This is just kind of a breakdown of some of the features we offer. And actually, Maryam, I'll let you take it over from this slide here.
Great, thank you so much.
No problem. And I'll just stop my screen share.
Perfect, I'll start sharing. And while we do that, yeah, I think this call is a perfect representation of what Launch Good represents. The team had shared with us the breakdown of the countries, and it's like one thing to see it on a list, and it's another thing to literally see your names with your countries listed out. So absolutely incredible, mashallah, and kudos to the team for putting this together, and bringing everyone together for this amazing event. So let me know if you guys can just confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see now.
Sweet. All right, bismillah. So thank you again, Omar, for that introduction. What I'm going to be doing, inshallah, is going more into details of the crowdfunding itself, right? What does it take to crowdfund? What works for crowdfunding? What doesn't work? What do you need? And specifically, what are the next steps in terms of setting up your campaign, inshallah? So we'll run through it. I'll try to give as much. I love examples. I love demos. So I'm going to be switching a lot between the presentation and the campaigns. So inshallah, it works out okay with the Zoom call. But hopefully, after we get a chance to run through it, we can open it up for questions, because I think that's where most of the interesting conversation happens. In terms of crowdfunding, again, a lot of you might be just familiar, but I also think it's interesting. We think of crowdfunding as this new concept, but really crowdfunding is something that's been there, right? Like for me, as a Arab, we always had this thing called the jam'iyya, right? And other cultures have these things where people come together, put small amounts to make a bigger amount to do something, right? To purchase, to give to charity, whatever. So it's always really existed within our communities, especially as Muslims. But in recent years, we've seen it take on a whole different life online, right? It's become digital. So now, rather than us being constrained to the people within our community, we can crowdfund, we can bring money together from all over the world. And that's what makes crowdfunding so incredible, especially when you have a community that is global like ours. There's different types of crowdfunding. So we have there's four main types. And the main two that we see with LaunchGood are donation crowdfunding, which essentially you want to, for example, sponsor 50 orphans and you want to collect $10,000 for that. That's donation, right? Your donors are giving you just purely because they want to support a good cause. They're not getting anything in return. Then we have the pre-sale or product crowdfunding. So for example, if you are writing a book, if you just created a product and you want to get funds to be able to publish that book, you do a pre-sale, right? Because then you can get people to pre-order your book so that you can collect those funds, get the book published, and then give everyone a copy of that book or that product. So it's more of a crowdfunding where the donor receives something in return. And then the two lesser common crowdfunding types are debt crowdfunding, where the intention is to pay back the donors, and then equity crowdfunding. So we don't support equity crowdfunding on LaunchGood, but we just wanted to bring to your attention that there is that type of crowdfunding and platforms that are out there to support that, where your donors actually end up getting get to be part of your company, become invested in your company. So it's not just a donation. But we'll be focusing mostly on donation crowdfunding today, inshallah. So I just want to do a quick run of history, just because I always find this interesting. Again, in the way that we think of crowdfunding today, it was actually traced back to 1997 when there was this British rock band that collected a bunch of donations to fund their tour, right? So they asked their fans, they're like, hey, can you please fund this? And they were able to collect funds, and it was very, very successful. But really, we saw a huge rise in crowdfunding, at least here in the US in 2009. We had like a economic crash, and people unfortunately had to take to online crowdfunding to collect money to pay their bills, for medical expenses, to pay rent, and so on and so forth. And so that's when really there was a boom in crowdfunding, and you see these crowdfunding platforms come to the public eye. And since then, it's only gotten bigger. And here I added 2020. We've seen this, when Corona happened, subhanAllah, we're like, obviously this is going to change a lot of things, and one of those things is crowdfunding. And it came at a time, especially for the Muslim community, when Ramadan was about to hit, and so many people who had fundraising events, those big in-person events, now suddenly had to turn to online fundraising. And so I think, in 10, 20 years, when we look at the data, we're going to see another bump or another increase in the crowdfunding space marked by the coronavirus pandemic, because in the current situation there is literally only one way to fundraise now, and it's online. Again, just throwing out, I don't want to spend too much time here, but the crowdfunding industry is a huge industry. These numbers are probably a little bit outdated, especially after COVID. But as you can see, it's a lot. People are now figuring out how to use crowdfunding to support their projects, to support their entrepreneurial initiatives, and so on and so forth. And it's becoming, a global phenomenon. I think it was mostly in the US. I think it was bigger in the US than the rest of the world, but it is increasingly becoming more popular, and people are becoming more familiar with it across the world. And I think this is a great representation of that. And then just some, again, fun products. If any of you are familiar with like the Pebble Watch, I think this is the most raised crowdfunding product ever. They raised $20 million for this product. This is a pre-sale type crowdfunding where people invested and then they got this watch at the end. If any of you are familiar with the Oculus, that was actually a crowdfunded product before it was acquired. These are really popular in the US. I don't know how it is in other places, but you can basically see the person who's ringing your doorbell through your phone. This was also crowdfunded. And the fidget cube, this was a huge hit in the US, especially with kids. So all of these products, you sometimes don't realize that they actually came from crowdfunding efforts. But now let's talk about your project. Let's talk about your campaign and what you want to do. So the first thing before you crowdfund is, you want to make sure you understand crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is actually not that complicated at all. As a concept, it's really easy, but you have to be mindful of two main things. And you need to have social capital, and you need to have publicity, right? you need to have a community or a space. It doesn't need to be big. Like, you don't need to be an Instagram influencer with thousands of followers, right? But you need to have some sort of community that is going to receive your project, right? Because those are the people that are going to fund your initiative. And so you need, when you're thinking about crowdfunding, you need to think, okay, who am I going to ask to support my campaign? Because that is the essence of crowdfunding. It's people putting in small dollar amounts. It's you asking people to support your cause. And so you need to have what we call social capital. Again, that community that you're going to go to make that ask. The other thing is publicity, right? Your crowdfunding campaign is not going to be good if no one knows about it. And so you need to be able to talk about your crowdfunding campaign. It can't be obviously a secret thing. It can't be something that you do on your own, because that goes against the essence of crowdfunding. It needs to be something that you are willing to publicize, that you are talking about. And we actually always say crowdfunding is more about the publicity than the fundraising. So of course the funds are important, but crowdfunding is your chance to tell a story. It's your chance to raise awareness about a cause. It's your chance to tell the world about your product, if that's the path you're going. And then we always say the crowd comes before the funding. You need the people, right? Again, in essence, crowdfunding is asking people to make donations. And so if you don't have that crowd, then you're not going to be able to fund your project. You need to know what you're crowdfunding for, right? Which again, might seem silly. You're like, oh, well, I just, I want to feed orphans. But you need to actually think about how you want to frame the messaging. And crowdfunding works very well for certain things and it doesn't work very well for other things. It works very well when you have a very specific project. You say, I want to buy 100 backpacks for 100 students for the new year, right? It's a very attainable goal. It has a specific and clear objective, and you can measure progress, right? But if you say, I want to raise $1 million to, to build a mosque, right? $1 million, first of all, is a huge goal, very big. In all of LaunchGood, alhamdulillah, we showed you we've had over $100 million raised on the site. We've probably had only 2 campaigns raise over $1 million. And that was in combination with online crowdfunding and other means. So it's not typical for campaigns to raise large amounts in crowdfunding, because again, in essence, crowdfunding is about small amount donations. So your project needs to be something with an attainable goal, given the community that you have, right? So if your circle of friends, if your community is small, then you want to make sure you match that goal to them. Because if you come to a small community and you tell them, I'm trying to raise $1 million, like, you've already turned them off, right? They're like, you're never going to get to $1 million. But if you give them a goal of like $5,000 and it just stretches them a little bit, then at least you create that drive for them to support. And so generally speaking, we see on average campaign goals range from 1,000 to 20,000. Again, that's general, that's an average. Of course, we have campaigns that have larger goals, campaigns that have smaller goals, but the important thing is that you make your goal attainable given that social capital that you have. You need to understand what is the capacity of the people around you and the network that you're going to reach out to. Again, in terms of the project, it needs to be something that's exciting, right? If you are raising funds for, building a school in, Malaysia for orphans, that's a lot more inspiring and exciting than saying, I need to raise $100,000 to pay the bills for our masjid, right? So again, you need to think about, when it comes to crowdfunding, this is a lot of, it's going to be shared on social media. It's going to be shared with networks. You're going to have a page. So it needs to be something that's exciting and that's going to inspire people to give. You need to have some sort of social network. Again, that doesn't mean you need to have thousands of followers and be on social media. And we'll actually talk about what's the most effective way of reaching out to people. And hint, hint, it's not posting on social media. But needs to be some sort of network, some sort of people that you can tap into, and a team. And we'll actually double down on the team aspect in a few slides, inshallah. But when you have more people helping you out, it just becomes a lot more effective. Again, these are examples of specific projects that work really well, and I'll show you some specific ones we've had on the site. But sponsoring 100 Syrian orphans, something with a specific number, build a gymnasium for a masjid, right? So rather than build the whole masjid, because that's just a very big project, and you acquire the land and the building and the materials and everything. You focus on one thing. We want to raise 20,000 to build a gym for the masjid or to build a library. Provide Qur'ans for those who are blind. Again, so very specific, very clear goals. Who will help you run your campaign? Obviously yourself. If you have any business partners, if this is a product, and then friends and family, right? Like, whether if you're in a volunteer organization, you reach out to a couple of friends that you really trust and will push this campaign. That is going to make your campaign so much more successful. What platform will you use? I will say we have a little bit of a bias, right? Alhamdulillah, with LaunchGood, but it's important to understand where you'll host your campaign, right? There's a lot of different platforms out there. As Umar said, there's LaunchGood, there's GoFundMe, and depending on which region, of course, there's other platforms that are specific to the region. Facebook obviously is the place that you can fundraise, although I think in some countries it's not available. So you have to just think about where do you want to crowdfund and who is your audience. So one thing about LaunchGood that makes us special and that we absolutely love is that we've created this space specifically for Muslims, right? Donors come to our site looking to support projects that benefit the Muslim community. And so you won't find that on other platforms, at least, you know, like the GoFundMe, like I said, which is the biggest competitor here in the US, because they're just a much larger space, right? They cover a much larger community. So always think about what is the network that you're trying to support or to get, how much do you want to raise, and how will you receive the funds? So there's certain like not restrictions, but in terms of like how you can receive the funds. And actually one of the things with LaunchGood is, you know, we always have to identify the bank account, and if if you're raising funds for a nonprofit, it has to go to a nonprofit bank account. It can't go to your personal account. So just thinking about like the logistics of your crowdfunding campaign. The next thing you need, of course, is your campaign page, and we'll jump into an example. So I'll just skip over this for now. Now, one important thing about crowdfunding is that it's the most successful crowdfunding is the best story, right? The better you can tell your story, the better you can crowdfund. The better you can communicate the impact of the work that you're doing or what you're raising funds for, the more that you'll be able to connect with donors and have them support your cause. Every piece of your crowdfunding page is a chance to tell your story. So this is an example of a crowdfunding page. And actually, I'm going to switch over and go to the page itself so you can see it. So this is how a campaign looks like on LaunchGood. And there's different elements that I'll call out here. So here you have your title, Sounds of Hope, Language and Sound for Deaf Child Refugees, right? And we'll talk about this in a second, but obviously you want to choose a title that again communicates what this project about. Right away, you can tell this is for deaf child refugees. And then you have something called the tagline, which adds a little bit more context, right? Help us bring language and hearing aids to deaf child refugees. Right away, without even opening this campaign, if I hadn't had it open, I would be able to tell what this project is about. So you always want to think about what is it that you want to communicate about your project? What is it that you're trying to do? There should be one or two main objectives that you're trying to do. Then you have your main campaign image. Again, this is a powerful image showing the actual work, what they're raising funds for. You have your goal. Again, I'll talk about all these in a second. And then you have your team. And then as you can see here, this is what we call the pitch. So your story. Here you have some really compelling taglines that really grab the attention, right? And from the beginning, communicate what the ask is. Think about yourself as a person who's on social media or online. What grabs your attention, right? And what is your attention span? Unfortunately, we live in a time where 10 seconds and that's it. Like, we're not going to spend any more time on that. And so that's why it's always important, although you might have a lot of content, to always put the most important stuff at the top to make it easy for people to understand right away what this project is about. And so right here it says, donate today to provide hearing aids, sign language, and audiological care for deaf children. That's it. That's literally the project. But of course, you want to add some pictures. You want to add some more content for people who want to learn. They want to understand where this money is going, who's it benefiting, where are these deaf refugees, or where are these deaf children? And then you add some images, because again, pictures are worth 1,000 words. It's just a lot more interesting and compelling to see this picture. So you can see how they broke up the text with these really awesome images. And so this is how you tell your story. Again, think about if you're writing a book, you're going to put some pictures, you're going to put illustrations, you're going to think about the order, you're going to think about what do you want people to walk away. And so you always want to think about your campaign page as that story, right? Why are you doing this? Who is it benefiting? And what can the donor, the person reading this page, do to be able to support this cause? So again, a good title is short and clear, recognizable, and indicates who or where the project is about. If I can't tell what your project is about, chances are I'm not going to click it when I see it on Facebook. So here I have some examples. Again, with every single one of these, you can at least guess what it's generally about, right? Secret Life of Muslims season 2. So you're like, oh, maybe it's a show, but it indicates it's some kind of media, right? And it's about Muslims, and it's a intriguing, like Secret Life of Muslims is an intriguing title, right? You know, the first one is about an app, an album, Pocket Sajjada, Ramadan Around the World. This is actually a book. You can't tell that maybe from the title, but the tagline adds context. But the title tells you at least what the book is about. So again, the tagline is that subtitle. It sums up your entire campaign in a tweet, we like to say. It gives more detail than the title and invites people to participate. So here are some examples actually from campaigns we've had. 14 refugee youth get together to save their people through theater. Let's let the world hear their story. I am Mohammed Khatib, and I want to win the first Olympic medal for Palestine. Help me fund my training. Help us empower Muslim youth in America with a dedicated support call center focusing on mental and emotional. So again, all of these taglines are adding context to what this project is about and making a specific ask, right? Like, help us, help me fund my training, support our actions. So it's making that ask to the donors. And then for the sake of time, I'm just going to skip this, but you know, this is always a fun activity. You can go in and think about like, what tagline would you use for certain projects? Now the goal, right? The amount that you're trying to raise. There's actually 3 things that you need to think about when it comes to your goal. Amount, obviously. How much do you want to raise? End date, partial or all or nothing. Now in terms of amount, again, you want to set up the amount to be something that's realistic within the context that you're operating in, right? So if you are someone who feels like, alhamdulillah, I think I can raise probably $5,000 for my network, then I would always say, you know, you can set your goal at 10,000 because you want to stretch your community a bit, right? And there's always opportunities to expand beyond your network, but a large majority of your funds will come from people you know, or know the team, or know the organization, or know the product, right? Because again, think about it. When you are a donor, when you see a project, how likely are you to donate to something that your friend shares versus someone you have no idea who it is and they share the project, right? It's always going to be coming from mostly people who know. So always think about how much do I think I can secure from my own network and stretch it up a little bit. You can always increase your goal, right? So if you want to raise $50,000, but you're like, I'm not sure if I can raise 50,000, you can always start with a smaller goal. Once you hit it, we stretch it up to 20, 30. You can always adjust your goal throughout the campaign. There's no problem doing that. Want to also think about the end date for your campaign. Most campaigns we recommend don't run longer than a month. That's generally the best time period, because if it stretches out too long, what do you have? You have procrastination, right? Because people will come onto the campaign, they're like, oh, I have like 50 days to donate, and then they won't never come back to make a donation. So time crunch is actually really, really good when it comes to crowdfunding, and it ends up that 80% of the funds end up being raised in the first 3 days and the last 3 days of a campaign. And I've seen this. I've run campaigns with my team before, the organization that I'm with. And subhanAllah, when you first launch a campaign, you're so excited. You're like, yes, this is awesome. We raised so much. And like you go all out in the first 3 days and you're like, wow, we raised like half our goal in 3 days. So then what happens is you get people relaxing and they're like, oh yeah, we're fine. We're doing good. You know, we already raised 50%. We still have 3 weeks. So there's a lull, right? And then you get that email from LaunchGood saying, hey, you have 3 days left in your project. And you're like, shoot, we still got $3,000 to raise funds. And then you see another push. So it's a natural pattern that you see. But generally, we say a month is a good time. And then you have something called partial or nothing. So when you set up your campaign on LaunchGood, you'll be given the option to set it up as partial, which means whatever you raise, you can keep. Right? So if your goal is 10,000, but you only raise 7,000, you still get to keep the 7,000 for your project. And that's what most people choose to do because any amount of funding works, right? Like if you are trying to fund 100 orphans, but can only raise for 70, that's still 70 people that you can support. But we have cases, for example, if you are looking to publish a book and you need at least $20,000 to publish the book, if you can't raise $20,000, then it doesn't make sense to take the 17,000, right? Because now you have $17,000 as an amana, and it's not enough to publish that book. So people do an all or nothing, which means they will only get the money if they meet that goal. I'm going to skip over this example. I have some other ones at the end. Now the pitch, again, the pitch, which is the content of your campaign. some of the things you need to think about is people give from their hearts, not their brains. So it's actually really incredible. Crowdfunding is so much about the psychology of the people and the emotional connection than the logic, right? People are moved by stories. People are moved by videos. They're moved by pictures. And so you always have to be thinking about that and how you can communicate your message through things that are going to make people emotionally support you. Where it becomes irresistible, right? Like, how can you not support such an amazing cause? How can you not support such an amazing effort? And you always want to make the person know why they should care about this cause and make them feel like they're part of the story, right? Like, your $50 helps feed a family for a week. Your $10 provides, you know, hearing aids, and so on and so forth. I'm just going to pull up an example here. This was a beautiful campaign we had from this Ramadan for Syrian refugees, an organization called Jusur. So again, very, very compelling title and tagline. You can tell right away what it's about. Help us provide emergency provision, give a gift a child food and education this Ramadan. And they use these really amazing pictures, mashallah, of the kids that are benefiting from their work. The other thing I want to mention here is we have something called giving levels, and this is a way you can communicate value, right? So here you have basically suggested amounts that you can give your supporters, and you want to always communicate what the impact of those dollars are, right? It's one thing to tell your donor, hey, yeah, support $20 to help this cause, but then when you tell them, you know, $20 specifically covers food, $30 hygiene, right? $250 helps sponsor a teacher for 1 month, right? That donor feels even more empowered because they know exactly what this amount and what the impact, rather than, you know, it going into a large pool of money. So always think about how you can communicate that impact to your donors to make them feel like they are part of making this project successful. Okay, just keep going. Another important thing is legitimacy, right? Of course, alhamdulillah, you know, as part of our faith and our teachings, we always want to be transparent and clear about what we're raising the funds for and who the money is going for. And as LaunchGood, we also apply that on our platform. Alhamdulillah, we have a very comprehensive review and compliance process to make sure that every person who is raising funds sends the funds to where they're saying that their money is going to. If they're raising it for a nonprofit, we make sure that we use their nonprofit account and not personal account. And so that's one thing that you will find when you try to crowdfund on LaunchGood, that you will be asked to provide that information and that security so that we can also assure the donors, because at the end of the day, again, this is an amana, and we want to make sure that every dollar that gets donated, you know, people are putting their hard-earned money, and we want to make sure that we are sending it to the right place. And so, you know, whatever you can do also on your campaign page to build that legitimacy is always important. You know, be transparent, use pictures. Even like if you're running a personal campaign, you know, put your picture, say, you know, why am I, Mariam Al-Khatib, care about this cause? Why do I care about it? Why, you know, because then again, it creates that personal connection with the donor. So I'm gonna skip over these again, just for the sake of time. Make it easy for people to skim through your campaign. Again, think about what you do when you go on a campaign page. Do you actually read every single word? Probably not, right? But you do skim, right? You'll see the headers, you read the pictures. So always put yourself in the shoes of the donor. What catches your attention when you're scrolling through Facebook? What catches your attention when you see it on social media or someone sends it to you in a text? And try to build your campaign to match that. Videos. So videos are really important. They generally help raise the campaigns twice as much. You don't want to make them too long. They don't need to be long or fancy. They actually don't, you don't to be like a fancy editorial production, right, video. But it needs to be something that is, again, visually and emotionally compelling and grabs people's attention, especially in the first 10 seconds. And I have an example here. I don't know if we'll be able, maybe I'll talk to the team, and I have a ton of examples here because we always share the slides after the presentation. So they're included there for you to see. So inshallah, I don't know if that's going to be possible, but we also have our website. If you go on there, there's lots of great examples. So you'll be able to see the videos. In summary, when it comes to setting up your campaign, you always want to be yourself and let people know who you are, right? All of you are really amazing, mashallah, incredible folks who are dedicating your time and your energy and resources for whatever cause you're passionate about. And so when you're raising funds for those causes, be yourself. Let people know who you are. Let people know why this matters to you, right? Like, why do you care about this organization that you're raising funds for? Why is it important that we support this campaign that you're creating a campaign for? Keep everything short and sweet and to the point. Again, attention span these days is very short. There's just so much going on in the world, alhamdulillah, either, you know, for good or for better or for worse. You know, there's a lot of tragedies, there's a lot of good things, a lot of bad, you know, so just be mindful of people's mental and emotional capacity, and get straight to the point without beating around the bush, and give many people reasons to support you, right? Again, alhamdulillah, when in terms of our teaching in our faith, we have the Islamic principles that we can use, but also, like, you know, everyone can do that, right? Like everyone in Ramadan, everyone is raising funds for an amazing cause. So you always have to go one step further and think about what makes your project unique for that context, for that donor. Why is it important for you that this person supports, and really cater that message to them. I just want to quickly again go through like a checklist, right? What do you need? So now you're like, oh, okay, great. I know what I want to fundraise for. I know how I want to, you know, I want to set up my page. What do I need? So again, you need your project. You need to figure out what you're raising funds for. This can be for your own personal project or for an organization, right? And I think that's the case for the context that we're in. You want to support an amazing cause. So you need to create the campaign page, tell your story. You need to identify the organization that the funds are going to, right? So again, if this is a local organization, if this is an international organization, you need to just be able to identify where the funds are going to. On LaunchGood, alhamdulillah, we have a lot of organizations that fundraise on our behalf on our platform already. So if you say, hey, I want to raise funds for Islamic Relief, chances are we already have Islamic Relief on record. We have their bank account, and we can connect you with them, and you can raise funds for them. If you are fundraising for a local organization you're involved in, right, you just have to make sure that you are in communication with that organization so that they can provide the banking information so that they're able to receive the funds. And of course, LaunchGood helps you facilitate that. And we always, have a very, alhamdulillah, we have a very really good process to help get that information. It is a process, right? You have to provide your bank information and documentation and, a copy of your ID. But again, all of this is in the name of transparency and security, because at the end of the day, when we have a more, the higher quality we have, the better we can deliver to our community, and we can maintain that strong trust within our community so that we can continue delivering the good work that you all are doing. Now, I just wanted to touch on a crowdfunding team, because I know the theme of today is volunteers, and all of you are volunteers. And so chances are you generally work with people. And I just wanted to emphasize the importance of having a team. Campaigns with teams raise twice as much compared to campaign creators without teams. Why have a team? Teams can literally make or break your project, right? Like, it can literally be the difference between having a successful campaign and not having a successful campaign. Why is that? Because a few engaged and motivated individuals can accomplish a lot more, right? Think about just even network-wise, right? When you add 3 more people, your network, your circle of friends, your circle of family that you can reach out to is already automatically bigger. But then also you can feed off of the energy of these people. You can celebrate the wins together. You can tackle the challenges. It's just a lot more exciting to be able to do that with a few other individuals with you, to be able to accomplish your project. So really, I really encourage you that if you do crowdfunding, find 1 or 2 friends, or 3 or 4 that will believe in the cause as much as you do and are willing to push, because it takes some work. Crowdfunding is again, it's not complicated, but it takes some effort, it takes some time, it takes some energy, and it's just it's a lot more exciting when you have people with you to do it. Now, how do you mobilize your team? How do you mobilize your volunteers? Make the objective clear, right? It needs to be clear what you're raising funds for. It can't be like, oh yeah, we're trying to raise funds for the organization. What about the organization, right? What is it for the organization? Again, we said specific projects work the best. Is it to build a basketball court? Is it to provide scholarships for students? Is it to provide learning materials? Whatever it is, it needs to be clear. Everyone on the team needs to understand it, from whoever is managing to every volunteer to the donors, the supporters. Because if your volunteers themselves don't know the objective, or that your team doesn't know the objective, then chances are your donors aren't going to be, or your potential donors won't know what the objective is. Establish communication. This is incredibly important, right? Like, you need to be talking to your team. It can't be just casual. It can't be something that you hope happens by chance. You create a WhatsApp group for your team specifically for this project. You put them in there. You again, use it to motivate your team, use it to communicate. I remember when we crowdfunded for my team, like, we would share screenshots every time the amount went up. we would share memes, we would create like internal contests, like who can get the next donation. We even had, and it just creates, again, a lot more excitement and energy when you see a lot of people with you in it, wanting it to be successful. Check in regularly. When you're doing a crowdfunding campaign, like you literally don't talk about anything other than crowdfunding, that crowdfunding project, until you meet your goal, which is good, right? Because the average person, this is always a funny statistic to share, the average person needs to see something 7 times before they take action on it, which is incredible, right? Which sounds crazy, but when you think about it yourself too, like how many times does it take for you to see the same thing posted multiple times before you're like, maybe I should pay attention. Maybe I should actually read that post. Maybe I should actually share this article or read this article, because at this point, 5 of my friends have read it, right? So you need to be checking in with your team regularly so that you can continue to remind them, like, we need to keep sharing. Who have we reached out to? Who have we not reached out to? Have we posted on Facebook? Have we posted on Twitter? Have we posted, have we reached out to our message board? Have we sent it out in the newsletter? So constantly checking in your team also helps you constantly be posting about the campaign. Collectively share your experience online and within the community. Again, there's always humans behind every project. And while the project and the cause are very, very important, it's also, again, important to build that personal connection. And so you always want to make sure that you are sharing your experience and you're talking to the community and you're calling up. Sharing on social media is really important, but the most effective way of reaching out to donors is actually calling. Phone call and text direct, right? Again, I always say this, think about what you respond to, right? Are you more likely to make a donation from a link that your friend shares on Facebook? Or if that friend sent you a text and was like, hey, Amar, I'm running this project, would you be willing to support with $10, right? So when you have a team, you're able to make those direct contacts and connections a lot easier because you have more manpower, more woman power, right? Like you literally, this is what we do. We created a spreadsheet and we're like, okay, Mariam's going to reach out to these 20 people. Amar's going to reach out to these next 20 people, and so on and so forth. And that way you have a lot of direct touch points with potential donors that, like, it's almost a foolproof method because, some people might not be able to donate, but at least they know about your cause. They'll provide words of encouragement. They'll share it. But generally speaking, most people have no problem and are excited to support your campaign, especially because in crowdfunding, you're usually asking for a very small amount, $10, $20, whatever it may be. And most people are willing and able to do that. And celebrate, right? You want to, again, celebrate the success and the wins with your team. So I'm just going to run through some quick examples. I know we're coming up on time pretty much. Actually, I'll leave the examples till the end. But I just wanted to wrap up, right? So in terms of crowdfunding, again, so less than 10% of projects hit their goal, but like we said, most people usually do the partial. So people still end up raising funds that they're able to keep and use for their project. 80% of funds in first and last 3 days. Again, there's just that energy and that natural human response to the excitement of when you first start, and then the adrenaline rush of trying to meet the goal in the last 3 days. 80% of donations come from small donors, right? So the majority of your friends will come, like the number of donations will come from small donors. And then it's not rocket science. So again, Facebook and Twitter and social media is really, really important, but nothing beats the old-fashioned direct contact, whether it's through whether it's through a phone call or a text message. Text message works generally just as well, or a WhatsApp, or so on and so forth. In conclusion, you need to be passionate, you need to work hard, engage those around you, and start early, right? Again, hopefully you've seen by now that crowdfunding is pretty straightforward, but it does take time, it does take energy. You have to set up your campaign, you have to get the pictures, you have to get the story, you have to get your team together. So think about that timeline. Take that into account. Now, if you are thinking about starting a crowdfunding campaign, you would have to go to launchgood.com, you click start a campaign, and then what happens is you submit your campaign for review. And then our team looks it over. They might ask some questions just, again, to make sure and verify that what the project is about and where the funds are going to. And then it's approved, and then you're ready to crowdfund. Alhamdulillah, we have such an amazing help center team. And I'm not just saying this, like, they're so quick and so on top of it. And so you'll generally, if you have any questions, you can always reach out and they can support. I just wanted to bring your attention to some of these projects that we have. So when this whole COVID-19 thing started, obviously a lot of people were suffering, and there was an opportunity to be able to help and support people affected by the pandemic. And so we set up a page to host these campaigns, and you can see, alhamdulillah, mashallah, over $3 million has been raised for various efforts all over the world to support people in the coronavirus. And so that's one thing that we do a lot in LaunchGood, is we have these pages for certain causes, right? Whether it's COVID-19 relief, whether it's Syria or Palestine, or feeding iftar, or orphans. So if you are doing a campaign for a specific cause, chances are you'll find a space or a page specifically for it here on LaunchGood. And you can always come and start your own, right? So if you come in and you're like, oh, I want to start a COVID-19 campaign, relief campaign, you can come in and start your campaign directly from here. The other thing we have is something called community pages. So if you are an organization and you run multiple projects, we can actually create a custom page for you on the site. So this is actually an organization based out of Turkey, IHCRO, that runs a lot of amazing causes on the site. MashaAllah, they do incredible work. And so what we did is we created a custom page for them that hosts all of their projects. So it shows like all of their past campaigns. And so donors can come and they can, again, it goes back to transparency and credibility, right? Because you can come here and like, okay, wow, mashallah, they've done this many projects, they've raised this many funds, and it builds that trust with the organization. So if you're an organization and you're going to be running multiple campaigns, we can set up a custom page for you like that. The other thing that you can do as volunteers is raise funds on behalf of an organization and get people to raise funds on behalf of your organization. So we have this organization called Ramadan Tent Project out of the UK. And what they did is they had a bunch of volunteers start campaigns on their behalf, very small amounts. So you can see here, it's 150 pounds. So not really big goals, but they set up a page for each one of their volunteers, and each one of their volunteers was responsible for raising a small amount of them. And let me just sort. So you can see they raised over 31 pounds just from that. Again, very small amounts by individuals. So you see Amara, Samina, Farzana, like they each kind of just took it upon themselves and say, I'm going to raise 150 pounds for my open iftar. And all of these small donations came together for a larger amount, mashallah. So this is something also we can help support with if you want to mobilize your volunteers and your supporters in this way, where you don't want them to just make a donation, but you actually ask them, hey, can you raise $100 or can you raise $500 for the organization? You can have multiple people doing that. You can set up a contest. We actually have really awesome ways of tracking how much people bring in donations. So we can create unique links. So you say, the volunteer that raised the most or had the most donors gets, an iPad or whatever. So you really want to get creative with how you mobilize and you engage your donors and your supporters in your community. And then I just have some examples of some really nice projects from this past Ramadan. Again, just mashallah, there's so much work, subhanAllah, being done in the community, and it's really incredible to have a platform and a place where you can come and support these types of causes, right? Like where else in the world, unless you live in Liberia, would you know about probably this cause, right? But alhamdulillah, through a platform like LaunchGood, you're able to come and not only learn about this cause, but be able to support it. And now, just by putting in $1, by supporting this campaign with $1, subhanAllah, you have sadaqah jariyah in another place in the world. And so again, always thinking about your work and your efforts as an opportunity that you're giving for people for sadaqah jariyah. And so, you're doing amazing work, and there is no shame in asking people to support the amazing work, because at the end of the day, it's going back to the community. You can see this really amazing community campaign here. Again, I have a bunch of campaigns here, so if we are able to share this presentation, you'll be able to click through them. And I just want to end with talking a little bit about Ramadan, because we just had our Ramadan challenge. And so what we do with the Ramadan challenge essentially is we ask people to commit to giving at least $1 a day to a different project on the site every day of Ramadan. And so alhamdulillah, so obviously from a donor side, again, it's that opportunity to be able to support 30 amazing causes around the world. But from a campaign creator side, it's your opportunity to showcase your campaign to the world and get that support. And so, as Omar said, alhamdulillah, we had over $30 million raised just during Ramadan. And so, again, that's just something to think about with LaunchGood, or like a platform with LaunchGood. Like, we always have these certain opportunities for you to showcase your campaign, to expand. So again, while your direct network is always going to be the most important and where the majority of your funds come, LaunchGood can just help you expand a little bit beyond that network and reach a more global audience and raise the remaining funds. So we have the Ramadan challenge, we have Friday givers. So we also, every Friday, we have some donors who commit to giving $5, every Jummah. We have Dhul Hijjah challenge. So we always have these things going on where you can get your campaign some exposure, where you can benefit. We run contests to give additional boost to campaigns. So we have all of that information on the site, and inshallah, we can share more details, or I can help in the Q&A. So I'm just gonna share this really fun video we did for Ramadan. Hopefully make it work.
This Ramadan was unlike anything we have ever experienced. We came together as a global ummah, despite the uncertainties, and made a real difference.
Thank you for helping us serve the most vulnerable during Corona this Ramzan. बहुत शुक्रिया और बहुत प्यार पाकिस्तान से.
With your support, we distributed over 500 hijabs to medical workers.
From Syria to the United States, Somalia to Palestine, Kenya to the UK, Burma to Kashmir, your donations have made a difference for people in over 140 countries around the world.
Thank you for standing in solidarity with Uyghurs. With your help, we've supported 2,400 Uyghur refugee families.
Your generous contribution made scholarships for our students possible.
Thank you for spreading all the blessings, oh blessings, oh blessings!
Over 3,000 of you came together to support dawah projects and masjids across the UK.
We came together to put smiles on people's faces this Ramadan.
You and I uplifted the world with our zakat in this critical time.
Eid Mubarak. 여러분과 여러분의 가족에 하나님의 은총이 항상 가득하시기를 기원하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Hey, Assalamu alaikum and Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak.
Again, alhamdulillah, that shows you the power of our global community, and you all are a true representation of that global community and the amazing work that this community, I mean, this is all a result of the community, right? Like, it's nothing, alhamdulillah, as LaunchGood, we just get to be the platform. But all the amazing work is from people like you, from people who are in the community doing the work, who are putting themselves out there and making the effort to get people to support their amazing work. And so I look forward to seeing you all on LaunchGood and seeing your projects and being, and supporting you in every way that we can, inshallah. So I'll wrap it up here and just open it up to questions, and maybe we can answer some things that I didn't get to touch on through the questions.
Yeah, just before jumping to the Q&A session, I just would like to again thank you for the excellent presentation, Omar and Mariam. And like as Omar said, that we are really lucky to have Mariam today. Like, mashallah, you explain everything from the first step to last step, and just like really made us to feel that feeling. Like I feel now, the like kind of energy in my heart that I need to like start as soon as possible to be the part of LaunchGood. And also as ICY, we are really supporting LaunchGood, and it's really important platform. And as you mentioned, Sadaqah Jariyah, I was just thinking about when you started to talk about all of these, if our international participants, if they don't know about the Sadaqah Jariyah, is like a sustainable good deeds. Even if you die, it's going to continue in the world, that you did something for the benefit of Ummah and the society and community. I'm sure that the rest of team is going to explain to you via WhatsApp. So this is one of the unique teaching of Islam that I was thinking, I really thought by when Mariam said about the Sadaqah Jariyah, and I was also very jealous that LaunchGood itself is amazing Sadaqah Jariyah by the way, mashallah. It's like, how can I say, it's like more than sustainable, it's going everywhere else. It's like, so many and touching so many people. It's amazing sample for us. And also I'm really excited to learn about how this story is important when you are going to plan your campaign. And the most important part is not really important how many likes you have, but how many people are connected within your campaign planning process, and how you are going to connect with them in order them to be part of your online crowdfunding. And also, it is really important period of time during this corona. I think all of us really looking for a way how we can help or support or contribute any kind of issues happening for the global world. And the online crowdfunding is going to be, I think, as you also put the history of the online crowdfunding is going to be different after 2020 for sure. It's already now. And I also would like to mention about your some of your current campaigns, like the recently unfortunate plane crash in Pakistan. There are some campaigns going on going about that. So if anyone else would like to know what are the current campaigns within Launchpad, you will see different perspectives, you will see different problems and the communities they're trying to find out. So I'm really we are really how can I say, it is really right place to talk about, because our volunteers are really eager to do something for the society. And I'm really happy to be the moderator of today, specifically that now we can have a chance to design something together through Launchpad. I hope, and I challenge, and also I encourage all volunteers here today to initiate any campaign for any good for the whole world during Corona, or any other issues that you are thinking, you are dreaming, and you would like to solve and find the solution for it. Temporary or sustainable, it doesn't matter, just to start the process. So now we can have your questions by your raising hands as always. But before, now we just receive it. The most important part for me as an individual to understand how the transparency process needs to be planned for the online crowdfunding, and that was really clear also. And also like to having a team during the campaign planning, and also like the time I was thinking about it, how it needs to be like the ideal time that you are suggested within the experience of Launchpad is like 1 month is a perfect timing to receive and to plan everything. But for sure, the planning of the such kind of campaign needs to have more, maybe months, to get everything clear on table. So let's start our first question from Egypt. Ahmed Shobi, please, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you for giving me opportunity. Thank you so much for Ms. Mariam and Mr. Omar for your presentation and efforts. This big initiative. My question is, in perspective of crowdfunding, are the crowdfunding only for organizations, or there is the opportunity for individual, like funding and a project for individuals, persons, or like in the video they are talking about funding a scholarship for students. There is are there opportunities like this or not? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Ahmed. So yes, we support both personal and organization campaigns. And so for example, if you want to raise funds, we see this a lot. People want to raise funds to be able to continue their education, or to be able to go to college, or Allah, God forbid, they ended up in the hospital and they need help for medical bills. Like, these are very personal projects, and we are able to support that, inshallah. The only thing we say, for us, when we say organization, the reason we emphasize is if you are raising funds on behalf of an organization, we always prefer that we use the organization's account and not the personal account. Even if you say, like, I'm going to take the funds and give it to the organization, just because of security and even laws here within the US, we always want to make sure the money goes as directly to the organization as possible. So that's the only thing when it comes to personal. Like, if you personally are raising for a fundraising organization, we still ask you to use the organizational bank account.
I have a question on that. And I should to make a local organization like to fund me from the Launchpad, or about the business account or bank account. It's not my personal business account. I should request from local foundation or local organization to do that for me.
If you are able to, yeah. But again, if it is a personal project in nature, like if you are raising funds for your own education, it's completely fine for us for you to use your personal account. But if you are getting a scholarship through an organization, then yeah, you would just coordinate. We would help you coordinate with the organization to use their bank account so that the money is deposited with them, and then they handle passing it on to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you so much. While expecting other questions, let me also ask another question. When we plan for example, we planned such kind of digital campaign, and we reached our targets, and we would like to inform our donators, our supporters. So how the Launch Good is supervising that process? Is that kind of like a methodology that, like, after they're reaching the goal, we are informing them, or like as an organization, am I going to choose you informing them? So how the process ends, like how to inform the donators for just being transparent?
Yeah, that's a good question. So actually, through our platform, you have several mechanisms that you can use to update your donors. When donors make a donation to your campaign, they have the option to sign up for updates from you. And so if those donors share their email and sign up for updates, we have an option that says on your campaign page, if you click update donors, it'll actually allow you to send an email automatically to all the people who signed up. You can include pictures, you can include videos, whatever it is. And we always encourage that, because again, think of yourself as a donor. It's one thing to make that donation and get that gratification in the moment, but it's really amazing. And this happens a lot with Launch Good. SubhanAllah, Narmad probably feels the same way. Like, you make a donation and you don't think about it after, like, you made the donation, and then like months later, you'll get a postcard in the mail of pictures. Like, this just happened with me. You're like, SubhanAllah, like, again, that concept of sadaqah jariyah or continuing jariyah, like, you don't know where that dollar goes and when it ends. I mean, it literally could perpetually keep going on forever. So we always encourage campaign creators to update donors, because number one, that establishes the relationship with the donor, because if you update them, then chances, if they donated to you the first time, it's actually a higher chance that they'll come back and donate again. And so by providing updates, you're keeping that connection and communication line open. But yeah, we do have a mechanism for you to be able to find those emails and be able to send them through the campaign page.
And this is really important feature that the Launch Good has, because the donators there, I mean, there are so many people that are looking for the organizations to just make the donation, but since such kind of feature is going to allow them to follow up the process if they are interested in, of course, I think it's really awesome to hear that. So we are going to have another question from Malaysia. Narmesh, please, floor is yours.
Hello, Miss Mariam. Thank you so much for the amazing session. Actually, I actually conducted few crowdfunding as well. Alhamdulillah, all went very well. And I was thinking that how will Launch Good sustain its platform? Because I believe that crowdfunders need a little of commission of all donations that has been provided in the platform. So I would like to know, how do you guys sustain in long term? Thank you.
Amar, do you want to take that one?
Sure, yeah. So great question. One of the core things I think for us is to make sure that we build for sustainability. And alhamdulillah, crowdfunding is one of those business models that allows for our business goals to be aligned with with the campaign creators' goals as well. So Launch Good takes 5% of funds raised across the board, which is like the industry standard essentially. But there's also an additional option where somebody, when they're donating, they can say, I want to cover the fees. So as a campaign creator, it's about 70% of our donors opt to cover the fees. So as a campaign creator, your fees actually reduce quite a lot. In many cases, it's actually less than credit card processing, which is like if you had a credit card processor in your hand and people were just giving you money directly. In many cases, Launch Good can actually be, cheaper than even that because of how many people cover fees. But that's actually a really good point, because of this aligned incentive that this business model creates, we as a Launch Good team wake up in the morning thinking the same thing as campaign creators, which is how can we have as many campaigns on our website right now as successful and reach their goal. So we're all going kind of towards the same exact goal, alhamdulillah. And that's, I think that when incentives align, really strong things can happen. Alhamdulillah, we have a good success rate on our platform.
Thank you so much, Omar. And while we're expecting questions, I would like to also again ask another question. Is that, I mean, since you are now in the field and you are seeing so many different campaigns, like, but from your own perspective, like trying to figure out how to support the communities, like which areas are you looking at, especially during the COVID-19, also for our volunteers to think about different, a bit practical in order to design or plan a campaign during for the COVID-19? What kind of areas, like important needs that, not like a suggestion, but from your kind point of view, would be really important for us to think about it, or maybe ponder over it, especially for specific support or specific demand of the society in anywhere of the world? So, I mean, especially for COVID-19, what are the important areas that our volunteers need to think about it, or like trying to develop themselves for any kind of designing campaign?
Great question. And Mariam, you can jump in if you have ideas too, but I was thinking, for COVID-19, this is something that, it's a totally new experience for the world, and there's a lot of, tragedy happening around, and I think a lot of experiences now are just transitioning online. So crowdfunding is a natural place to help, cover bridges that that are not available anymore. So I think one of the things, and Miriam covered this also in her talk, is the idea that campaigns should be tangible. So like specific, so for example, instead of saying, oh, like, let's help doctors during COVID-19, if you know of a specific, for example, hospital that's in need, you could say, let's help this hospital, have equipment for the patients and doctors. Then, like, at least it's more specific. Or you can be, if you find a vulnerable community, the more specific it can be. And I think Mariam gave a good example. Like, we want to get 100 book bags, to children that need them. That's very specific. And when you donate, this amount of money goes to this campaign. So if you are connected to a community where you see a vulnerable, portion of that community needs help, think of how you can specifically help them and break that down into a campaign, and then go out and structure a campaign around that. Another idea as well is, maybe right now creating a campaign within itself. Like, if you don't already have a campaign idea, and after this talk, like, one doesn't naturally come up to you, there's also another side to this, and this kind of ties in with the volunteering side, is there's a lot of really powerful campaigns already existing on LaunchGood, and you can plug into one of those and help them amplify. So actually what you do is, like, if you go to that campaign page and you click the share link from inside the page, and you're logged into LaunchGood, it'll give you a unique URL. So every time somebody supports a campaign, you'll get notified somebody supported through your link. So even if it's not your campaign, but you shared with your unique URL, you'll get notified. So this is another, part of it where you can find an existing campaign, something that resonates with you. You could even message the campaign organizer and be like, hey, I would like to help volunteer. Or you don't even have to message. You can just share the link, and you'll start getting emails every time. And then you can even start to test the power of your network. So don't feel the pressure that you need to start a campaign if there's already a campaign similar and that you just want to support it. And if you do want to start a campaign, definitely we can help you set that up. I can actually just show real quick as a screen share. Like, this shouldn't even take a minute, of how that works. So
yeah, this sounds excellent to be part of the current campaign as a volunteer, just to promote it.
Exactly. So for example, the campaign that you mentioned about the Pakistan flight, very tragic campaign. And LaunchGood, what we do is we actually don't start campaigns ourselves. We find people on the ground that are in the communities, and it's authentic to the community. And those people that are starting campaigns, we support them. and we say, okay, we'll help, we'll make sure this is verified and all this stuff. So this is an example. And you can see here, I'm logged in. So if you're logged in, like you have to create an account for this, but when you go over here, you can click this share link. Your share can raise over $36. This could be kind of like an average of how much it is when you're sharing. Just click this link here. Now, if you see, I'm not sure if you guys can, let me see how I can paste it. At the very end, let me just go to google.com. At the very end of my link, it has this part over here. And that's my personal unique URL. Yours will also have a question mark and then SRC, and then it has like your kind of username. So what or your ID. So now anybody that gives through this link, and just for fun, I'll go ahead and add this to the chat. But if you give through that link, I'll actually get an email that says this person's name. I'll get your name. I won't get how much you gave, but I'll get your name, and it'll say, they actually, I can show you how the email looks. It looks like someone. So, for example, right here, my brother-in-law, Ryan Al-Fallah, just, he supported through my link. That was the latest one. So you'll actually get this and you can see who gave. So I just wanted to kind of give you guys that perspective of it too, especially from the volunteering perspective. You can help amplify existing campaigns.
Thank you so much. Omar, it was really practical, and also to show it here and for us to understand how we can just like actively contribute as a volunteer. And also it's going to give us a chance to understand how the campaign and the crowdfunding is working just by volunteering it. And thank you so much for this. I have one question also from Afghanistan. Shafiq Hakimi, floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum for everyone. I'm
Actually, we can't hear you.
for your excellent presentation today. It was very Allah. For example, if we start a company in your site, launch code, and we can start other company, it is the same company in X site. Is it possible to going to on as two company, one is company at the two site? Thank you.
Thank you. Mary, you want to take this one?
If I had trouble hearing, but the question I believe is about having the campaign on two different websites.
Yeah, exactly like that.
So, while we can't stop folks from having campaigns on two sites, we actually always recommend having just one campaign on one website, whether it's LaunchGood or otherwise. The reason being, you don't want to split up your donors, right? We saw, again, the crowdfunding is all about the emotional part of it, like the energy and the excitement. And so if you have people donating on one page and people donating on another, it just kind of splits up your crowd, it splits up your amount raised, and it confuses people, right? Because people, again, we said it takes 7 touch points for people to act on something. And so if they're seeing 2 different links, like you almost have to share it like twice as many times for one of them to stick. So we would always recommend only running it on one platform at a given time, so that you can just have one focus, one campaign, one link, and drive all of your donations and traffic there.
And a really good thing about this question as well is the idea that a lot of people see crowdfunding as, you just you set up a page and then you push it live and it gets funded, just from the internet's magic or something. But it takes all that really hard work. So if you do centralize it on one page, like Mariam's saying, then you can organize your efforts easier, and it's less confusing for the donors, and it amplifies one campaign, so there's like a bigger number, online funds raised for one campaign. So so even if like a platform, you say, well, this platform might have almost 1 million users, and this one has I don't know how many users. You say like, oh, like maybe that's twice as much money I can get, but it doesn't work like that. It's like it's all about your network size and how that grows.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would also add that, that doesn't mean just because you have one page, that doesn't mean you can't use other means of fundraising, right? So you can still, ask people for checks, or, if someone gives you cash or someone, right? Like these aren't necessarily directly donating through your LaunchGood page, but we actually have an option on the campaign page called add offline donation. And so you go in and you say, I got $100 today, and it will reflect your total. All right. And we don't even take fees on it. But again, we encourage people to add their donations there because we want everything to be centralized. You want to show people that you're making progress towards your goal, even if you're using multiple methods, but put it all in one page.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So much. I have another question from chat box. I would like to ask you on behalf of Papa Banda from Senegal, and he is asking about it's more about like advocacy campaign. It's not necessarily to ask any kind of donation, but is it possible via LaunchGood, if I have an idea, for example, any kind of climate action, I would like to just ask some people to put on their self t-shirt like globally and encourage them on the same time, same day, to just do like kind of reading book on the ground with same sort of shirt, but it's going to be like a kind of campaign. Is it possible to do such kind of advocacy campaign through LaunchGood?
I would say, so, I mean, LaunchGood in its essence is about crowdfunding, and generally the ask is asking for some monetary, right? And so there isn't like, there has to be some sort of monetary contribution to the pages. That being said, I mean, if you are looking to do advocacy with monetary, then you could definitely do that, right? Like people sometimes sell, like you can sell shirts for your cause. And for example, you say if you donate $25 to this campaign, you get your shirt. And then through that, of course, on your campaign page, you can share the link to your actions, the petition, whatever it may be. So definitely you can couple the crowdfunding with an advocacy type campaign. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, as long as there's something that they can go and click, I want to support this cause, I want to donate, then that's really what the crowdfunding page is designed to do. Like, it has that support button. But campaigns like that, if you can raise funds and it goes to what you're advocating for somehow, then that lines up. Another thing is like crowdfunding is, it's not just about raising funds. So yeah, the page is designed to collect funds, but it's also about raising awareness. So all these projects that you guys have in the back of your mind, that you could, inshallah, raise funds for, crowdfunding, if you can just get all the funds from like one rich, uncle or whatever, then it's like, that's one method, but you actually miss out in this whole opportunity to publicize your project. So in a way, you can kind of think of crowdfunding as like you're getting paid to advertise your work, like, because that's the other arm of crowdfunding. Like maybe 1,000 people see your link, but only a few, like 5 or 10 give, but still those like 1,000 that saw your link is still really powerful.
Thank you so much, and I hope it was an answer for your question, Papa. And I also would like to ask another question regarding, since the COVID-19 is like putting us in our homes, and we don't know what's going to be happen for the next 2 months or 3 months, even for a year maybe. So as a volunteers, it seems that we are going to practice volunteering more in the online platforms. So is there any kind of plan from LaunchGood side to have like an online volunteering practice that our volunteers also can be directly into? I know there is a community, strong community and network within the LaunchGood, but is there any kind of because there is as ICYF, we can just convey to that there is the important capacity and the active participation of volunteers, and they are looking for the opportunities where they can do online volunteering. So how it can be possible with the lunch good and like with a systematic way. I know that just the sharing the link is very great example, and I'm sure that so many of them is going to find important campaigns for themselves to be part of it. Even we don't say it, but like, is there any kind of practical way that they can be online volunteer of lunch good during this important process, since you have so many campaigns going on? And also last one, like a voice of their community to make sure that there are some issues like not reporting, but informing, like maybe the same community also doing some sort of campaign, but the relevant people also, they're like just helping to connect those two groups together. It just like came to my mind and to ask you like how we can practice this.
Sure. So actually, in terms of the sharing the link, I just want to take it one step further. We actually have something called the Amplifier Network, where you formally sign up to be a volunteer for LaunchGood to help amplify specific causes. And so I know, like, alhamdulillah, inshallah, I think there's almost 5,000 campaigns, so it can get a little bit overwhelming if you're just looking to do good. So with the Amplifier Network, when you sign up, we actually send you specific campaigns, and we say, you know, right now we're raising funds for this, the victims of this Pakistani flight. And so you actually sign up to say how many times you want to be contacted. You get like a cool kit too, like you get a t-shirt and with the Amplifier Network and all of that. And so you just become part of the team, become part of the people on the ground, really putting out the campaign and getting support locally from your friends. And I like what Amr said, it's a good way to test out your network and to, I don't say practice, but like basically learn what clicks with people and how, what are the causes that people around you care about. So that's one way to do it. The other thing we have is, so similar how we have the Ramadan challenge, we actually have the Hijjah challenge coming up in July. So the 10 most blessed days of the Hijjah. And so, you can sign up, you can do a lot of things. You can sign up to give $1 a day to different causes. I mean, again, that dollar goes a long way. Like you won't imagine how much benefit that brings to the campaign, but and then in return the benefit that you will find yourself every day you wake up to an email that says your dollar went there. And so that's one way to, again, not only support financially, but then you become aware of the causes that are out there. And so then you can always contact, like every organization, every campaign on the site has their contact information. Like you can contact the campaign creator. And so through that, if you come across a cause or you come across an organization, you can actually send an email to them and say, hey, I love your work. How can I support beyond just, donating on your campaign? Can I volunteer? Can I do something online? A lot of the organizations, if you saw in some of the campaigns, share their social media website. And so through that, you can click and follow and see what they're doing online and be able to join. And then I think that to your last point that you made, as LaunchGood, we're always ready and happy to help you connect, right? So alhamdulillah, we have a lot of organizations that fundraise on our site. So even if you say like, I want to raise, I'm looking for an organization that builds water wells. Like we have a list, right? Like we have an organization that we can connect you with. Even if you want to support and volunteer beyond just crowdfunding, right? Like you just want to get in touch with the organization, we can help facilitate that, inshallah.
So thank you for the excellent answer. I think it just like covered all my questions, because also Omar just shared the Amplifier Network that just to sign up there, you will have a chance to be just a volunteer during this process. As just Mariam said, that whatever you are like really interested in and you would like to be volunteer of that, they are going to like, you are going to have the list of areas that they are doing these campaigns that you can be volunteer of. So we have just one question, but now I can't see it. Just let me check the chat box again. And yeah, I think, yeah, now I can see from Afghanistan, Sundus, floor is yours.
Hello, hi everyone. My question is about the fundraising. If my campaign failed to raise certain amount, is it possible that I can extend the date of deadline or restart another campaign with similar name? Thank you.
Yep, alhamdulillah. So the nice thing about LaunchGood is very flexible. So you can always change the date. You can always change the goal. And depending on your situation, generally, like we can help recommend either reopening the campaign and just continuing where you picked, where you ended, or starting a new page. But we can do either of those.
Think of the goal as an art of incentive. Like you're trying to, like Mariam was mentioning, trying to find the capacity of your network and then maybe stretch them out just a little bit. So it's really about trying to have that art of incentive. I mean, we have some campaigns they come in, they say, we want to raise $100,000. But like, okay, let's start with a goal of like 15,000. And then, even if you reach that goal, then creating that blast that comes out and says, oh, we reached our first goal, now let's increase. That's so much more exciting for your community than trying to reach 100,000 and then maybe just reaching 80,000. It just looks like you came short of your goal. But if you just slowly increase it, so it's more of an art of incentive. I think it's a good way to think of it. But yeah, like Mariam was saying, there's the tools you can edit it and to keep that incentive going.
So thank you so much, Omar and Mariam. I don't know which way to just underline and emphasize during this insightful presentation for today. But I think Lunch Good is going to be important place for all of our volunteers to discover more, to try to be on the loop and on the same page with you, to just support you during COVID-19 and after COVID-19. I do hope so. The most important thing is that is going to be important, remarkable point of today is changing the narrative of Muslims, who Muslims are. The most important point for me. That's how Lunch Good it started. And also the other important memory of today's session is when you just share with us the Twitter heat map, and when those kind of unfortunate process and the things happened in other side of the world and even in Turkey, but to see how we are connected as a humankind. And it was really important and tangible sign to show all of us. And for me, it is I will never forget this, because it's a good reminder for us. We are still really connected. And now there is no choice that we are just going to be connected more than any time. So thank you so much for being here today, and especially to talk about such kind of practical example within the great experience of Lunch Good to our volunteers. As ICWeb, we will make sure that to be communicate with you for the next coming our programs and different kind of campaign planning. As ICWeb also, we are planning some sort of campaign process to be just with you, and also to promote the Lunch Good is one of the good example of the online crowdfunding to our member states and our member organizations. Thank you so much for today's session again, and thank you so much our all participants. Thank you so much for our ICYF core team who is working for the online volunteering training, and also technical team who is making these sessions possible. If you have last words that you would like to say, Omar and Mariam, I would like to give you the floor for the last time before closing the session.
I would just like to say that, I'm inspired by you all, by you being here, by the number of people on this call and the work that ICYF does. We are here to support and serve you as Lunch Good, as a platform. Like I said, we are just a reflection of the incredible community that we have, and we're looking forward to seeing what amazing work and projects that you'll be fundraising for on Lunch Good, inshallah.
Definitely, Mariam. And by the way, was it last year? I think we were in Istanbul, and Mariam gave a talk at one of the local universities about Lunch Good, and mashallah, Istanbul has a special feeling in the city. So, and I know Mariam likes it a lot. So if there's any speaking opportunities to fly Mariam out, then she'll always be down for that. But I do want to just do a quick just as a closeout, just to show you guys the Ramadan challenge, a little bit more of the details of it. This is what the latest product that Mariam was managing, and currently it's on the Eid stage because it ended. But the rest of this page, you can see, you had 250,000 people giving throughout just this Ramadan alone. $32 million raised, 8 million of that just in zakat, and over 6,000 campaigns. And you can go through and see some of the campaigns. This one actually, the first one, my wife was volunteering in, and it's first year with no favoritism happening. Actually, I had nothing to do with it, but it's just because it was the most campaign that was added to the give list. And if you guys are familiar with the Uyghur refugee situation, and you can see so many different really, really inspiring campaigns, and also we have leaderboards. So, and this is actually about to come back to life for Dhul Hijjah, like Mariam was mentioning. So you have leaderboards, and you can see like how many points you have compared to other people. The most raised, you can see how many, like which campaign is most raised each day, most supporters. You even have some fun things like Ibtihaj Muhammad was voted as a favorite athlete, and biryani was selected as a favorite dish. We have like some like fun, you know, polls and things throughout it. And then there's also like a live counter, so you can see people giving on LaunchGood live, you know, and it just keeps refreshing. So things like that. And you can see like friends that join through your link. So it's a very gamified, fun way to experience Ramadan, Dhul Hijjah. And, you know, they say a smile is charity, but for us, it's like, can we make giving charity put a smile on your face as well, and have it be a fun experience, an uplifting experience. So anytime you guys have any feedback or anything, please do send it our way, inshallah. And we'll always be, inshallah, just an email or a message away, and maybe one day in the same room.
Thank you so much, Omar, and also Mariam for the amazing words. But the most important thing is also I would like to thank you that is you are really important proof of like amazing teamwork. One of you is from another continent at the moment, and another of you is from another place, and you are trying to join your contributions and efforts together for one good. And I think is the best. I mean, your presentation is the best, yes, but what you are doing itself as a practice is one of the best example for our volunteers to see this is really possible. And thank you so much for inspiring us, even with your working structure, even with your working progress. It was really important and remarkable for today. And as a also devoted young people, you have been doing really a lot of things for our societies, our world. And I would like to thank you for your amazing presentation and highlights, because I had a chance before starting the session, I just like some YouTube interviews of Mariam, like I like before her presentation, I had the chance to see that fire from her eyes, that she was telling that because she used to work with different companies before, but now she's working with LaunchGood. And she said that it is really important when you are working for somewhere else, but it is also the same, it also directs and refers to your own values. It's something different. We don't call it like a work, it's a life. And you also showed us important example today. Our work can be our life in a positive way, like can be really matched to our values. Thank you so much. I don't know which way to thank you for this practical work. And I'm sure that, I am very sure that our volunteers will be on the same page with you and will be following. And as I indicated before, we will be following up the relevant process, since LaunchGood is doing amazing work for any good for the societies. And I would like to also thank on behalf of ICYF and His Excellency President, Mr. Taha Ayhan, for your amazing contribution to the important topic, volunteering during pandemics and natural disasters of any time, any kind of time. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon. And as ICYF, we will be doing our best for our young people who are in the OIC member states or living in another countries, non-OIC member states. As ICWave, we are trying to catch up. We are trying to find the best way how we can develop youth policies in order to strengthen and empower how LaunchGood is thinking, empowering and enhancing the Muslims in every field and everywhere. As ICWave, we will try our best to do the best service to Muslim youth and Ummah as well. But as a result for all world. And please stay tuned with us. There will be different programs soon. And I'm sure that you will be interested in within those programs. Thank you so much for your amazing participation and amazing time. And see you soon, inshallah. Please stay safe and be fine with your families and